as Bobby joins us now here on The Fan. And a good afternoon, Bobby. How the heck are you?
I'm pretty good. The weather matches my mood. You know, a little murky, a little cloudy, a little hot, and maybe some sports tears falling every now and then. But I'm trying to get through it.
We're hoping for a breakthrough. You know, if we can get this thing to 2-1, it'd look a whole lot different, a lot more fun going into Game 4. How clear of a path to victory do you see here for the Mavs for just one game?
You know, I think whenever you go down 0-2, you can really talk yourself into pretty easily thinking that the other team is just way, 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 way better than you, right? But then, I mean, I went back and watched Game 2 today. There are just so many correctable mistakes that the Mavs are making. I mean, I'm talking like very simple stuff, like turning the ball over, bringing it up the floor, you know, and just kind of like soft layup attempts against KP, who's a great shot blocker, and just things that are like, they should know better than this. They are better than this. They're very good players. Like Kyrie Irving is not going to travel and dribble it off his foot 3 times a game or whatever like he has been so far. So I think if they can just control the things that they can control, they should be able to win a game. The problem is, though, the Celtics are such a great three-point shooting team and a volume three-point shooting team. Can't really count on them shooting sub 30% from beyond the arc the way they did last night, maybe even one more time in this series. So for every 3 the Celtics make, the Mavs' job becomes a little tougher, but hopefully, you know, at home, role players step up a little more. They feel a little more comfortable with the fans behind them. You know, hopefully they can get at least one. But I mean, they're probably going to need to win both at home to have a realistic shot at winning the series.
What do you, Bobby, attribute to the Kyrie struggles? Is it just great Boston defense? And how much confidence do you have into him moving forward that he can look more like the Kyrie that we've become accustomed to?
I think Boston's defense has a lot to do with it. You know, the Minnesota series, obviously, you know, the Wolves only won one game in that series, but in Game 4, they switched Jaden McDaniels onto Kyrie as opposed to having Ant or sometimes even like Mike Conley guarding him or Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And McDaniels' length really bothered Kyrie quite a bit in that Game 4. That was the only game the Mavs lost, and that was Kyrie's worst shooting game, I think by percentage, maybe even of the playoffs, at least at that point. So, you know, Boston's got a lot of similar length. You know, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, you know, they're tall, they're very long, they're very quick. And then if you're able to avoid those guys as Kyrie, well, now you have to score against Derek White and Drew Holiday, who are just as quick as Kyrie and who both have very strong hands, very good anticipation skills. So there's no like target on the Celtics defense that Kyrie and Luka can just take turns going at over and over and over again. They're trying to do that a little bit with KP, but KP is dropping beneath those screens, which takes away, you know, any sort of driving angles around the rim and forces the Mavs into those little like 8, 10, 12-foot pull-ups. But again, the Celtics players are so long that they're able to recover through that screen and still get a pretty good contest on Kyrie. You know, Luka, not as much. Luka's had an unbelievable series so far, and the Celtics' smaller guards aren't really bothering him. But pretty much everybody has had some good defensive possessions against Kyrie. So I think Boston's defense has something to do with it. But, I mean, you know, I'm not in the guy's head or anything, but I have to imagine that atmosphere was not easy for Kyrie to play in. You know, they were very, very excited to boo that guy. I don't think it's going to be the same in Dallas. So hopefully, you know, in a little friendlier environment and with 2 games under his belt, he can figure out some tricks to beat those guys.
Bobby, what's your evaluation of how Maxi's looked? Because, I mean, we know what he does defensively and the versatility, and he was so important until he got hurt in the Clippers series with the way he was shooting the 3-ball, but it seems right now he's just not playing with any confidence on the offensive end.
Yeah, you know, I think he subbed into the game last night and took one shot pretty quickly, and I think KP might have got a piece of it. I'm not sure if he got credited with the block, but it was a corner 3, and I'm pretty sure KP got a piece. But then the next possession, Maxi goes to the opposite corner and gets an open 3 and misses that, and then not long after that, tried taking KP off the bounce. He got a pretty good angle at the basket, but KP was able to recover and block it, and it was a pretty demoralizing play. You know, obviously, Max's ability to space the floor is really important whenever he's playing center, but so far in this series, he spent most, if not all of his time playing alongside either Lively or Gafford. You know, the Mavs really haven't gone to that classic 5-out small ball look that they relied on so much, you know, earlier in the season and in that 2022 playoff run. And so if Maxi's playing power forward, but he's passing up shots, or if the three-point shot's not really falling, well, you're not really gaining any advantage offensively in that situation because you still have a center around the rim. So you're only playing 4 out, and one of those guys might be maybe a little hesitant to shoot. Maybe that has something to do with the shoulder injury. I'm not sure, but the percentages would suggest that there's something going on. And then defensively, if Maxi's playing power forward and you still have one of those bigs on the floor, you're not really playing a switch everything style. You're kind of doing the same thing that you always do. It just so happens that you have a slightly taller power forward than you would in PJ Washington. So, I think Maxi's best traits, he's able to contribute those at the 5 as opposed to the 4. But through 2 games in the series, the Mavs just haven't found the time, to give him extended run at the 5. They've wanted Lively and Gafford in the game. And, those guys have had their own fair share of struggles. Really, it's like all the Mavs bigs, I feel like, are trying to keep up with all of the speed, all of the pace, all of the space on the floor. And, they've had varying degrees of success, but obviously, the 0-2 hole kind of speaks for itself at this point.
That's an interesting point that you brought up with the small ball lineup. And is that an adjustment that you think maybe the Mavs should utilize? It seemed like Jason Kidd definitely wanted to push the tempo more to avoid Boston being able to get set defensively. Maybe you do go back and add a Jaden Hardy in there with Maxi there at the 5 and try and add more speed.
I think so. I thought Dante Exum, he made a 3 last night, which is nice to see. Hardy's had some good moments, obviously, throughout this run. So, the Mavs need their wings and their guards to up the scoring, if they're going to put those guys in, because obviously if you take size off the floor, you're probably going to be giving something up on defense. So you have to be able to get that back on offense. But throughout most of this playoff run, Josh Green's shooting has been kind of up and down. Hardy's been pretty good, but he didn't play much early on in the playoffs. Exum and Hardaway have been kind of in and out of the rotation. So there just haven't been as many guys off the bench that they could count on. But, through 2 games, you're down 0-2. And if you fall behind in game 3, it's basically your season's over if you lose. So you have to go down swinging. I would expect, if the Mavs do fall in a hole, I would expect to see a lot more 5 out, maybe even PJ Washington at the 5, and just say, hey, Luka and Kyrie, we're giving you as much space as humanly possible. See if you guys can drag this offense out of the mud and get something going, because there's really no advantage to be gained right now with the pick and roll game, with the ball screen game. The Celtics are just switching everything, or they're dropping KP and not really giving up much around the rim at all. The Mavs bigs, Gafford got into it a little bit, in the second half last night, but for the most part, Gafford and Lively haven't really done much scoring. The Mavs haven't really been scooping up every rebound at either end of the floor either. So, what advantage, I guess you have to ask yourself, are the bigs providing that you would then lose if you went to that small ball look? And I think through 2 games, they're not providing enough of an advantage to justify leaving them on the floor. I think you have to try the 5-out look. So I would be surprised if we didn't see that, to be honest, in game 3.
Bobby, just watching these last 2 games, though, it's, the Celtics can afford to be really aggressive on defense. And if they foul, so what? Because the Mavericks, you put them on the line and then they're having problems with free throws. There's nothing that they can do about this right now, is there?
Just try and make them. Really, that's it. You just have to try and make them. I think free throws are almost entirely psychological. Luka has been unbelievable in both of these games, but he's shooting like 46% from the free throw line through 2 games, which is unimaginable for him. Other guys like, okay, Gafford and Lively, you expect them to miss some, and maybe other guys like Derek Jones, PJ Washington, those guys are in the 70s. But Luka, you'd expect Luka to be close to 80%. And the free throw misses really add up. They really, really add up. But unfortunately, for Dallas, their other mode, other than just all-out aggression, going to the rim and trying to score, is shooting a bunch of threes, and the threes aren't falling either. So, it seems like we're really seeing kind of the role players press. They're trying to make something happen, right? They're trying to force the issue. They're trying to create something. And sometimes that is going to result in some uncomfortable turnovers. Sometimes you're going to draw a foul, but then you have to finish the play at the free throw line and knock those down. Boston's offense is just too good to give away points like that at the charity stripe. You almost knew, watching the first quarter as they're missing a bunch of those early on. Like you could feel it. Like these are going to matter later. Like it's this very ominous foreboding thing. And unfortunately it became reality later on.
Can the Mavs get more corner threes? What needs to happen for that to occur? And, Can they still hit a high percentage of those above the break threes if they can?
I think their best bet at getting more corner threes is to go 5 out. The way the Celtics are playing, I mean, they were in the second half, they were putting 2 on the ball, a little more on Luka, but that was generally KP or Horford kind of abandoning the big man and following Luka. That help wasn't coming from the strong side or the weak side corner. They're not really rotating off of those shooters at all. And so I think the best way to engineer looks from the corner is to space the floor, put your best shooters in the corner, and basically Luka and Kyrie have to beat their guy one-on-one and force help from somewhere. That's pretty much the only way you're going to get it done. Through the Eastern Conference portion of the playoff run, the Celtics had only allowed 6 corner 3 attempts per game. I mean, that is a mind-bogglingly low number. And really the only guys that are getting corner looks for the Mavs so far in the series are guys like Kleber or Derek Jones, who Boston is willing to leave open. So if you want your best shooters to get the easiest looks from 3, which is that corner spot, I think you have to respace the floor. You have to put more pressure on them, like laterally, vertically, all over the place, stretch the defense thin, force them to help off someone, and then find that guy. But otherwise, you're going to have to hit those longer ones from top the arc.
Bobby Karalla, Mavs.com. Final question. Do we want Kyrie to force the action if Drew Holiday is going to stick with him that close? Do we want him to pass out of it? What needs to happen for Kyrie to be that player that he was for Cleveland in these moments?
Yeah, I think force. The series isn't over. Obviously, they're only down 0-2, but I'm going out on my sword, man. I'm going out with my sword in my hand. I'm going out on my shield. Like I'm going down like a warrior. I think if Kyrie gets double teamed, passing out is the right play. But if they're going to play Kyrie one-on-one, it doesn't matter who it is on Boston, whether it's Tatum, Brown, Holiday, White, any guy off the bench. In order for the Mavs to win this series, Luka and Kyrie have to dictate the terms of battle. They have to go out there and beat their guy one-on-one over and over and over and over again until the Celtics are forced to adjust, And if you are very aggressive, you could be rewarded with a whistle. You could wear the other guy out, which means it's tougher for them to knock down threes. There are a lot of benefits to playing aggressive. You just have to keep your pedal to the metal. Don't get derailed. Don't get bothered by missing shots or by the crowd or whatever. You have to stay aggressive. Otherwise, you're kind of playing right into the Celtics' hands, and so it's unfortunate to kind of encounter a shooting slump at this point of the year, but the only way out of a slump is to shoot your way out of it. And so I would expect early on in the game, man, Kyrie's got to get going. Maybe this is one of those games where he's going to take 10 shots in the first quarter and see what he can do. And I think the Mavs really, really need, obviously, him and Luka to have great games to have any chance in this thing.
Okay, I lied. It wasn't the last question. I mean, so many things we could ask you about, but I do want to look forward. How sure are we that it can work with Luka and Kyrie? I mean, I know we got to the finals, beat some great defenses along the way, but it really helps if your first and second best players are great defenders. How much does it work if neither of your two best are good defenders?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we're seeing Tatum really go at those guys, Jaylen Brown to a degree as well. I don't think that, if the Mavs end up losing the series, I don't think it's necessary to get into this existential questioning because you lose to a historically good team. But, the fact remains, in each series throughout this playoff run, there has been one guy on the other team that the Mavs haven't had to guard from 3. That you don't have that luxury against the Celtics. Everybody's got to play. So, fortunately for Dallas and fortunately for most of the NBA, there aren't many teams that have 5 shooters and 5 guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot. But, yeah, I mean, with Luka and Kyrie, it's going to be really, really tough to beat these guys unless they can, really dial it in. I think – moving forward, if you're trying to idealize a version of the Mavs, it's you have a little more dynamic stuff going on from your wings that can take some of that offensive responsibility off of Luka and Kyrie's plates so that they can dig in a little bit more on defense. But, I mean, throughout the playoffs, they've played some of the best defense I've ever seen them play before. It might not be good enough to beat this really, really, really dang good team. But I don't think that means they need to, tear it all down and start from scratch. It does mean, though, that, Luka and Kyrie are going to have to find a way to get even better on defense, and hopefully starting on Wednesday, but if not, then certainly starting, next April, May, and June.
Thanks, Bobby. Enjoy the rest of the finals. We always appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.